about us and how we got started. Me and Abby have been working with Raptors for 20 years before we started this own venture. Then we struck out on our own. So we're located in Buffalo City, Wisconsin, which is like 2 hours north, right on the Mississippi River, still on the Wisconsin side. We really couldn't have imagined how fast our business has really grown. We started out, we had 3 or maybe 4 birds, a couple of our falconry birds, which we'll talk about a little bit, and a couple of education birds. And we're just like, well, we'll start small and just do some local programs and this and that. We have been in business for just about a year. We have 12 raptors and a crow. And we do programs kind of all over Wisconsin and Minnesota. So our business and our center has kind of grown faster than we could ever imagine. We're set up to get an eagle. We have our eagle permit and our muse and everything all designed, so we just need to find a bird to get, the funding to get that bird over here. So, it's all due to you guys having us come out and do programs like this. And thanks to the Kickapoo Valley Reserve and everybody for coming out and having us do programs. We are a nonprofit organization with our 501c3. Our tax exempt status is filed right now and the paperwork is going through. So hopefully within a couple of months we'll be able to be tax exempt nonprofit, full-fledged thing. So it's all due to your donations. We do have a donation bucket. That's how we make our living. So if you do after the program come up and have questions and stuff, please give a donation, whatever you guys can afford. We really appreciate it. And all the donations go right to food and right to our raptors, and we don't take anything out of that, so it goes right to the birds. So what we're going to do here today, we did bring 3 raptors with us today. We're kind of going to try to do a back and forth thing depending on how Lila does with that. And so we got a bunch of different birds. So all these birds are alive. We don't have any taxidermy specimens. They are real, 100%, raptors. And there's a couple of things that have to do with that. These birds are not pets. We have both state and federal permits that allow us to have these birds, and the list of red tape, you can imagine having a migratory species is super long. We do house all those permits, and we do have all the correct housing and everything for them. But just to go over a couple of things before we get our birds out, because they're alive, there's a possibility they can move. Obviously, they're birds and they want to fly. Even though some of our, all the birds we have are capable of flight, and that's just an instinctual thing for them, is to want to fly and to want to get away. And being in front of a group of people isn't something really natural, and all our birds have been doing this most of their lives. Still sometimes a little scary. So they can do a thing called baiting, which is just attempt to a tethered bird to fly. So we'll be holding them on the fist, and they'll just jump off, and they're going to look like they're going to come land right in your lap. But we have them all on tethers, so they're just going to hit the end of the tether and come right back up, and they'll be fine. Everybody can handle that okay? Yeah. So other thing is more for kids, and it's just my spiel. My birds are alive, my birds poop. Not a big deal. We'll get some paper towel right away and clean it up. We usually bring a tarp with us, but along with all the hustle and bustle this morning and our 2-hour drive, we forgot our tarp. We'll get that cleaned up right away. And some of our birds do make noise, so it's important to pay attention. And I'm sure you guys are not going to talk like our 6th graders.
But you could probably set it.
If everybody's okay with that, I'm going to flip it over to Abby, and she's going to take out our first bird.
All right. So one of the things Joe didn't mention in our introduction is our name, River Valley Raptors. So the reason we got our name is that both Joe and I grew up in the River Valley region, in the Driftless area. And so when we moved away and worked at other raptor centers, we really had a passion to want to just get back to the Driftless area, the bluffs, the river, really beautiful. So since moving back, a big part of starting River Valley Raptors was talking about conservation of the Driftless area. It's a really unique region, the Driftless area, and so just getting out and talking to people about that. So while we have the birds and they're great and we love working with them, their reason that they're with us is to get out there and teach people about their wild cousins, because we want their wild cousins to stay in the wild. We want them to be out there enjoying the land, and a big part of keeping animals wild is making sure there's habitat for them to live in. And so it's really important that we protect this habitat that they have so that there's always a place for them to go. So I'm going to get out our first bird. Ooh, he's not that heavy, it's just the box. So all the birds, the 3 birds that we have with us, are all raptors. Now there's 4 major groups of raptors that we have in this area. So who wants to take a guess at those groups? Owls, eagles, hawks, and falcons. Yeah, so the one I'm going to get out first is actually part of the falcon group. This is the largest falcon that we have in Wisconsin year-round. Step up. Anyone know what type of falcon it is? This is a peregrine falcon, yeah. So we need a little paper towel here. Got some fun poop on our leash here. So Freddie here is actually, he's kind of a tricky species. I like to say he's a peregrine falcon. He's actually 3/4 peregrine falcon, 1/4 gyr falcon. So who's ever heard of a gyr falcon before? Yeah, so they're actually the largest falcon that may come down into Wisconsin during the winter time, but they are an Arctic species. So he actually came to us from another falconer. The falconer had gotten him from a captive bred situation, so he was hatched in captivity, and the falconer had gotten him to use for falconry, of course. And during that time, he actually used to fly Freddie at UW River Falls during the games because he gets the name Freddie from their mascot, Freddie the Falcon. Now, unfortunately, Freddie injured his wing, just a minor wing injury. He can still fly pretty good, but the University of Minnesota Raptor Center did say that if he were to continue to fly a lot, he'll actually start to develop a lot of arthritis in his wing. So we allow him to fly at home just a little bit, just enough to kind of keep up his exercise, and it's fun for them to fly, but we kind of keep an eye on how much he's flying just so that wing stays healthy and doesn't start to develop that arthritis. So. Well, I'll leave him hooded a little bit longer. That's the reason actually why he's hooded, because he was a falconry bird. Falconers oftentimes like to train their birds to be able to wear a hood. So this doesn't bother him at all. In fact, it actually is very relaxing for him. They are a very visual species, raptors are. They use their eyes a lot. And so by keeping his eyes covered, it just keeps him calm. He might be able to hear you, but that's not going to make him nervous. It's going to be seeing things. So when you're out in the field, several falconers can take their birds out into the field at one time. But falconry birds oftentimes are trained that as soon as we're outside, they get to go up in a tree. And they get to fly around. And so if you want to walk someplace and don't want your bird to quite fly up yet, rather than having your bird keep trying to fly before you're ready, you can just pop this hood on, and then they can walk to whatever area you want. Then you take the hood off, and then that bird gets to go and fly free. Now, so we've just kept up with that training just for traveling purposes since he does so well at it. So before I take that off and talk about peregrines, let's talk a little bit more about raptors. So raptors are different than, say, robins, crows, and they have 3 main differences. So what can you think? What's one of those differences? Their curved beak, yeah, it doesn't stick straight out like a robin's or a crow's. They're not going to be pecking into the ground looking for worms or insects. They have a curved beak. So that is their tool. They use that like we would use a knife and fork. They're going to hook that beak into their food, and they're going to rip and tear it into smaller pieces. Now, they don't have any teeth. They're not going to chew, so they're going to swallow those smaller pieces whole. But if he catches like a big quail, he can't swallow that quail whole, so he's going to hook it and then use those strong neck muscles to do that tearing. So very little power in that beak. That beak is just their tool. What's another thing? They're what? They're claws, yeah. Sorry, that was your sister who said that. Yeah, they're claws. Now in raptors, they actually get a special word. Do you know what that word is? Oh, does anybody know what that word is? Yeah. Talons, yeah, that's right. So all raptors have strong feet and sharp talons. So if their beak is their tool, their weapon is actually their feet. So those strong feet are what catch and crush and kill their prey. So there's a lot of power in those feet to catch their food. Now there's one last thing that defines them as a raptor. How do you think they find their food? They don't smell it. Eyesight, yeah, so they have very good eyesight. So when I take his hood off, excuse me, you're going to notice that he has very large eyes for the size of his body. And you're only seeing a portion of that eye. Their eye is typically about the size of their brain. So that good eyesight gives them the ability to see prey from really far away. So peregrines, falcons, are known to go really high up in the sky to the point where you can barely see them. They're just a little speck. And then they can see any birds, any quail, ducks, whatever they're hunting way down below. And then they can use that height to their advantage. Because is it faster to fly straight across or to dive down? It's faster to dive down, yeah. So by going really high up in the sky, they're actually getting more speed when they come down and come onto their prey. So a little bit more about peregrines. Who knows what the fastest bird in the world is? The peregrine falcon. Who knows what the fastest animal in the world is? How fast does a cheetah go? How fast does a peregrine go? I heard someone say 240. So wait, which is the faster animal? It's the peregrine falcon. I like to get people on that one. So the fastest they've ever been clocked is 242 miles an hour. And that was by taking a peregrine up into an airplane. They dropped its favorite toy out the door, and they let the peregrine dive down after it. And it had something called an altimeter attached to it. And that altimeter was able to match the speed, or that altimeter was able to measure how fast that peregrine was going. So we're going to get this off here. Sorry, Freddie. I know, I got to get it for you. Let me go this way. There we go. All right, so these guys are pretty fast. Who would want to race a peregrine? Yeah? Do you want to? We're going to have a little relay race. Do you want to come up here? Okay, come on up here. So do you think you could beat a peregrine? Yeah. Yeah, you think you're faster than one? All right, well, come on over here. All right, so what's your name? Andre. Andre? Yeah. All right, Andre. So actually, you can come over here and stand next to Freddie if you want. There we go. So you know what? I'll tell you, you don't have to actually race him in a running race because you might think you're pretty fast, but peregrines are actually faster. But what we're going to do is we're going to have an eating contest, okay? So we're going to see who can eat faster. So I'm going to give you some food. You want a mouse? No. No? Oh, I think that's actually Freddie's food. Okay, all right, I got something different for you. I've got an orange. Have you ever had one of those? Yeah. Okay, so what you have to do is when I say go, you're going to have to peel the orange and eat it in the time it takes Freddie to eat this mouse. Are you ready? All right, go. Now I have to tell you, Joe accidentally fed Freddie a really big meal last night. So Freddie might not be super hungry this morning, but we'll see. You having a little hard time getting in there? Yeah. It's all right. Freddie's taking a little time to dig into his too. All right. You see how fast Freddie, oh, Freddie's digging into the head. Oh, you better hurry up. Oh, man. Do you think maybe Mom can help you peel into it a little bit? Yeah, she'll help you peel it a little bit. Although I have to tell you, only one person has ever beat Freddie. Oh, we got the guts coming out. Ooh, a little bit of intestine hanging out there, making you guys really hungry, right? All right, Mom can't help you eat it, though. All right, go on. Just don't choke, okay? Make sure you chew. No, we're down to the tail. We got one bite. Oh, man. That was a really good try. Let's give him a round of applause. So, very cool. All All right, so let's talk a little bit more about their adaptations of what allows them to go that fast. So these guys, if you take a look at them, have very long, narrow, tapered wings. So they can tuck those really tight against their body, and it gives them almost a teardrop shape as they're diving through the air. Now, if you can imagine, though, if you're diving through the sky and you're going close to 200 or 240 miles an hour, do you think it's very easy to breathe? How many of you ever stuck your head out of a window while someone was driving really fast? Yeah, quite a few of us. If you haven't, it's not very safe. I don't recommend it. But for those of you who had, it gets harder to breathe the faster you go, right? Or a fast roller coaster or a fast boat. So these guys actually have special cone-shaped nostrils. And you guys in the front will be able to see it a little bit. So those nostrils are cone-shaped. And then inside that nostril is almost like a little spiral mechanism. So that cone shape actually baffles the air while they're flying. And that spiral allows just the right amount of air to get into those lungs or to those air sacs so that they're able to breathe. Now they can also develop tears that are about as thick as maple syrup to keep those eyes nice and moist. And all raptors have a third eyelid called a nictitating membrane. And that nictitating membrane actually goes back and forth instead of up and down. And they can shut it, but still see through it. So it's like putting on goggles, which protects them not only while they're flying, but also protects them after they catch their food in case, you know, the food they catch has claws and is kicking. It keeps those eyes really nice and safe. Now, these guys are aerial hunters, which means they catch their prey in the sky. So what do you think they're eating? Birds. Yeah, falcons are known for being other bird eaters. Now, the kestrel, also known as the sparrowhawk, is the smallest falcon, and they not only go after small sparrow-sized birds, but about 90% of their diet in the summertime is actually insects. And so they'll time their migration with the green dragonfly so that they can eat the dragonfly while they're migrating south. But these guys can actually go after something the size of a pigeon or even a duck. So can you imagine, so if you take a look actually at those feet, he doesn't have, when you see the hawk come out, you're going to see she's got very thick toes, very big feet. He's got very long, skinny toes. And that's made for grabbing prey out of the sky. But could you imagine hitting a pigeon at 200 miles an hour? What would happen to your skinny toes? You could break them. Yeah, so what they'll actually do is they'll actually ball their feet and they'll punch their prey right out of the sky. It's called a falcon punch. And it's actually shown that it's about the amount that a professional boxer does when they're boxing. It's a lot of force in that. And so that stuns their prey so that they can safely grab that prey and then land either in a branch or on the ground with the prey that they just hit. So very, very cool adaptations that these guys have. So I talked a little bit about why Freddie was with us, why he won't ever be released to the wild. Typically, and I say typically because it does happen sometimes, but we don't see that interspecies like the peregrine gyre hybrid. That doesn't typically happen in the wild. So again, he was just from a captive situation. All right, so we'll put that back on. And then the next bird we're going to get out actually. Can I get that? Yeah. You got to turn your head the other way. There we go. So the next bird we're actually going to get out is a nocturnal species. So what do you think our next species is? An owl, yeah. So we actually have 11 different species of owls in Wisconsin. So do you guys know any? Barn and barred, I heard both of those. Great horned, screech, saw-whet, short-eared, and then if we have a short-eared, what else do you think we have? Long-eared, yeah. What about the pretty white one that comes down? Snowy. Yeah, you guys got all of the really common ones. The ones that most people actually typically miss are the boreal owl. It's a boreal species, comes from Canada. And the northern hawk owl. And the great gray. Yep, I think that was all of them. So, before we get them out though, there's a couple of neat artifacts that we have up here. So I've got a hawk skull and I've got an owl skull. So what do you see the difference? Owl skull, this is a snowy owl. I think this was a red-tailed hawk.
The beaks are different.
The beaks are a little bit different. Yeah, because one's bigger. I heard also someone say eyes. Do you see the eye sockets? Yeah, look how big they are. So remember, how big did I say a raptor's eyes are? As big as what? As big as their brain. And owls' eyes are actually bigger than their brains. If we were to have the same size eyes, our eyes would be the size of our fist. That's how big our eyes would be. So their eyes are huge. So they have to have these special bony plates that help hold those eyes in place. That's also why you notice that raptors really have pretty flexible necks. Hawks, eagles, and falcons can actually look directly behind them at 180 degrees. How far do you think an owl can go? All the way. Yeah, a lot of people think that. But what do you think would happen to those really important, the breathing, the throat, the arteries? Yeah, so they can actually go 270. So they look forward, they go over their shoulder, behind their backs, and keep going and look over their other shoulder. So pretty far. The next big difference is going to be in their feet. So again, I got a snowy owl foot and a red-tailed hawk foot. What do you guys see? The claws, yeah. What else? What do you guys notice? What does this one have?
It's fluffy, isn't it?
Is it fluffy? And this one's not fluffy on the bottom, is it? Yeah, so owls actually have feathers that go all the way to their toes. And that's because owls are hunting when? Winter, or at night. And so it's a lot colder at night. So these feathers are going to help keep those feet warm. And for the snowy, I always like to use that as an example because they have the most extreme feathers on their feet. And that's because it also acts kind of like snowshoes for them. And the last one. How many of you guys have ever heard owls have silent flight? Yeah, so the reason has to do with the way their feathers are designed. So I've got a hawk feather. This is a red-shouldered hawk, an immature one. So it's smooth on top, smooth on bottom, and the feather itself is very stiff. So if we're really quiet, we should be able to hear this. And if you guys in the back can't hear it, I've got something better to show you. So now we take our owl feather, smooth on top, but the bottom is kind of fringed or serrated. And the feather, it's more so, even more than this fringing, it's the softness of this feather that gives it that silent flight. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get out our owl. You want to come out? So I always give them the choice if they want to come out or not. And usually they do choose to come out. You going to come out? Yeah, now you want to come out. Come on. So this is Cash. What kind of owl is Cash? Great horned owl. Yeah, I should be able to see it by those feathers on top of his head. So if we take a look at him, you can probably see right away a lot of differences between him and our peregrine falcon. Now you can see those feathers on the feet. He's got very, very large feet as well, very thick feet. So he's going to use that for catching bigger prey. He's got a lot more camouflage as well. So if he's awake at night, that means during the day, or if he's hunting at night, during the day, he's going to kind of want to stay hidden. And so he needs that extra camouflage when he's sitting in a tree. You can see he's got those very, very big eyes. What else do you notice about his face, though? It's pretty stern looking. Yeah, it almost looks like he's got like this flat face, almost like he got hit in the face with a frying pan. So owls have what we call a facial disc. So that's actually going to help them to be able to hear. So if you guys were to all cup your ears, tell me, did my voice just get louder or softer? Louder, yeah, that's because when you cup your ears, it actually funnels sound to your ears. So now that brings me to a good point. Do you guys see his ears? Do you think there are those feathers on his head? Yeah, they call them ear tufts, but they actually have nothing to do with their ears. They're actually just part of his camouflage. He can actually wiggle them around to kind of look like sticks or leaves that are blowing. So I'm going to need another volunteer who wants to come on up here. How about we'll get someone different up here? Yeah. You can come stand over here next to Cash. All right, what's your name?
Madeline.
Madeline. All right, Madeline, can you do me a favor? Can you point to your ears for me? Just have one ear? 2 ears. Yes, keep your fingers up. So humans have one ear right across from the other. This is called symmetrical hearing. Now point on your own head where you think his ears might be.
Here?
A little bit higher? Yeah, so I'll give you a hint. You have one finger right. So keep one finger where it is, but then take the other finger and move it all the way down here.
What?
Yeah. All right, now show everybody. So owls have asymmetrical hearing. They actually have an ear up high, pointing forward, and an ear down low, pointing backwards. Thank you so much, Madeline. You can have a seat. Now, by having that mismatched hearing, that gives them the ability to do something called triangulation. So if you ever see owls, maybe on TV or maybe even in the wild, kind of bobbing their heads, moving up and down, what they're doing is they're actually collecting sound into that facial disc and sending it to their ears and finding their prey without ever having to see it, just by hearing it. His hearing is so good, he can hear your guys' hearts beating. That's how good it is. So very, very good hearing. Now they do have good eyesight, but again, if you're hunting at night, you're not really going to be able to use that eyesight very well, so that's why they have to rely on that hearing. That's also why owls have silent flight. Owls are also very slow. They're not fast like a peregrine, so they do have to sneak up on their prey, but they have to be able to hear the tiny pitter-patter of a mouse under the snow. So if you have that loud flapping of your wings, you're not going to be able to hear it over your own flying. So now Cash here, the reason he's actually with us is when he was a baby, he fell out of the nest. Now I'm going to need one last volunteer. Who wants to come on up here? Anyone? Yeah? All right, you can come on up. All right, and what's your name?
Michelle.
Michelle. All right, Michelle. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that you're a rehabber, and we're going to pretend that Cash is still a baby. And actually, Cash isn't even a year old yet. He just hatched May 1st. So he is still kind of a baby, even though he doesn't look it. He is full grown. So we're going to pretend he's this little fluff ball, and as a rehabber, your job now is to teach him how to be an owl. All right, ready? Go. All right, we got to get him to flap his wings. Good job. So, you know, you can get him to flap his wings. Do you know how to fly?
Me, no.
Okay, so that might be a little hard. What else does he have to learn how to do?
Catch food.
Catch food. Can you catch mice with your feet?
No.
Okay, so that one's going to be a little rough. Maybe, you know, also maybe pull mice apart with your mouth.
Yes.
It might be a little gross. What else does he have to learn to do? Maybe hoot? Can you give us your best great horned owl hoot? That was pretty close to a great horn. Now, Cash actually just started hooting a couple weeks ago, so every once in a while he'll surprise us with a hoot. But apparently he doesn't think that sounds like a great horn, so I guess he's not going to hoot for us now. But it's pretty tough to teach him how to be an owl, right? So I'm not going to lie, I tricked you. I used to work at a rehab center. Actually, the rehab center he came from, I used to work there. And at that rehab center, we did not teach them how to be owls either. We actually used foster parents to raise all the owls. You can have or go back to the back again. Thank you. So at that rehab center, if we had a bird that couldn't be released, but they really didn't do well in front of a crowd like this, we would actually keep them at our center, and they would raise all the babies of their species that came in. And that's really important because birds do something called imprinting, which means there's a stage of their life after they hatch where they're getting fed by their parents, and they start to look at their parents and they go, okay, you're my mom, you're my dad, I am an owl. So if during that time a human is feeding them, what do they think? They think that human is their parent, and they now think they're a parent. And that window is very short, and once they imprint, it's done. So once they know they're an owl, they stay an owl. But if they imprint on people, they think they're a person. And so that's actually what happened with Cash. He was so little when he fell out of the nest that he actually had to live in the clinic instead of getting raised by the foster parent. And so then he now thinks he's a person. Now, it actually makes him a much better education bird, and in fact, one of the big associations that kind of govern, having birds in captivity and training and making sure we're always using the best training possible, they've actually put out a new statement that you should only use imprinted owls for education because non-imprinted owls actually are very nervous in front of people. if you can think, they're a species that's outside, only active at night. It can make them very nervous being in front of people. But if he thinks he's a person, he looks at you guys and he's like, oh, I'm good. I've been raised around people. So makes him a very good education bird. So I'm going to put him back. And then I am going to trade out with Joe here so that he can finish up our presentation and talk to you guys a little bit more about falconry.
So the last type of bird I'm going to get out is going to be a type of hawk. Now we have 7 different types of hawks that we can find in the state of Wisconsin during any typical time of year. One that's migratory. Does anybody know any types of hawks off the top of their head? Yeah. A red-tailed hawk, yeah, they're the most common, and if you see a hawk sitting on a telephone pole, 80% of the time, most year-round, it's going to be a red-tail. So very good. Any other ones? A rough-legged hawk. So yeah, those are here this time of year, and those are the ones that make up that 20% that you might mistake a red-tail for sitting on a telephone pole. Yep.
Broad-chested.
Red-shouldered, and what was the other one?
Broad-chested.
A broad-winged.
Broad-winged.
Yep.
Cooper's hawk.
A sharp-shinned Cooper's hawk. Yeah. One more. That's a type of falcon.
Sparrowhawk.
A sparrowhawk is one of those like colloquial local terms for like a sharp-shinned or a Cooper's hawk. I heard it back here somewhere.
Goshawk.
A goshawk. Yeah. So those are our seven species. So I'm going to go ahead and get this girl out here, and we're going to see if you guys can identify what type of bird she is. Does anybody have any idea what type of hawk she is? No, a rough-legged hawk would be a good guess. You know, she's got some of them telltale characteristics of a rough leg, but she doesn't have feathered legs. Her legs aren't feathered, and that's where rough-legged hawks get their name, is they got feathers running all the way down to the tip of their toes, and her leg is bare. Nope, she's not a goshawk, she's not a broad-winged hawk. She's actually a red-tailed hawk. Well, what the heck's up with her tail? Red-tailed hawk. It's pretty simple, right? You think the tail would be red. And she's displaying it really nice for you guys. Red-tailed hawks will not have a red tail until they become a year old. And then in the summer of their first year, they're going to do what's called molting. So they'll lose all their feathers and grow in new ones. And so the juvenile plumage of a red-tailed hawk is this brown barred tail. So now some of you might see she's missing a couple of feathers, a couple of them broke off. That's just one of the things about being a falconry bird and hunting really hard. And I like to hunt a lot of squirrels. And you know, imagine them flying through the treetops at squirrels and stuff. She's going to poop. At least I got it on that one. So you can imagine it, right? Like a hawk flying through the treetops. They're going to hit branches and stuff going after squirrels. They're going to hit. So sometimes they do, unfortunately, get busted up. And actually, on her, all of her brakes and all of her stuff are on the same line. And I didn't see it when I caught her from the wild. But she's actually got a stress bar in her feathers. So sometime during her development, when she's in the nest, she was lacking in food or lacking in some nutrition, like her parents couldn't catch food for a couple of days. So that'll cause what's called a stress line, or a stress bar. And that's just a kind of a weak point in her tail or in her wings that cause those feathers to be just a little bit weaker. And anything, you know, Mother Nature's kind of cruel, anything that's a little bit weaker will tend to break. So she's got some of the stress bars, so we're going to actually keep her for another season, let her grow in her full red tail, get those tail feathers nice and perfect condition, and then let her go in a year's time. So a little bit more about hawks and just in general, about red-tailed hawks before we get more into falconry, because I could talk about falconry for hours and hours and hours. So red-tailed hawks are like I said, one of the most common species of raptors that we see here in Wisconsin. Very versatile. So you'll find them nesting, you know, way out in ag fields. You'll find them nesting in forests, and you'll actually find them nesting right in the cities, like on balconies of people's apartment buildings and stuff like that. So super versatile. One of the most wide array of preys out there. I mean, the only thing they really don't eat is fish. They'll eat anything from bugs to mice to birds to rabbits to mice and voles and you name it. they'll pretty much eat at snakes. So super successful species. They're found throughout the United States, but they're only found in the United States. Unlike peregrine falcons is one of the few animals that's found across the entire globe. Every continent has a peregrine falcon. Super successful species. But red-tailed hawks are very specific to the United States. Okay? And in the falconry world, one of the most common birds, they're actually one of your starter birds to start out with. As an apprentice falconer, you'll start out with the red-tailed hawk or American kestrel, and most sponsors that you, make you have a red-tailed hawk. So I'll go ahead and pull her hood off here. Can you see your face? I don't have any food. So they get into the habit of, hood comes off, and then you go hunt or you go train for food or anything, ready to eat. So she's a very vocal red-tail. She's one of the most vocal red-tails I've ever had. She squeaks a lot like that, and that's a food-begging nest thing, And it's not that she was young, so the way it works with falconry is through our permits, I can actually capture a wild bird that's living alone on its own on its first migration. We actually call them passage birds, so they're making its first passage down to their migration grounds. So we have the permits and the capabilities to trap a bird out of the wild. So when I caught her, she was already 6 months old, already hunting and already flying and doing everything on her own, making her first migration down south. But sometimes the little squeakiness just kind of stays. And it's cute now. It happens all the time. It's so cute. So you can definitely tell they got those 3 raptor adaptations, right? They got the large, powerful feet, the hook beak, and those big eyes, right? And so for falconry, it is a hunting sport, so we're actually going out and capturing game, but it's unlike any other hunting sport you've ever seen. I actually don't do any of the hunting. She does all the hunting. I explain to people it's reverse bird hunting. So if you ever watched pheasant hunting or ever hunted pheasant with a dog, so in that instance, you have the gun, the dog goes up, kicks up the pheasant, you shoot it, and the dog brings it back, right? It's exact opposite. She's in the trees above me, I'm the dog going around and kicking up the rabbits or the squirrels. She goes and catches the rabbit, and it's a misconception she's not a retriever. So she'll go down and just catch the rabbit and hold it for me while I'm there, and then I help her dispatch it, and then she gets a reward for catching that rabbit. So she's not going out, grabbing a rabbit and bringing it back. That'd be too easy. Right? So we do get these birds out of the wild. So here's the question for you guys. So how long do you think it would take? So I catch her out of the wild. How long is the training process? So from 100% wild bird, you got to remember, they're raised to fear people and have people as a major enemy of them. They're one of the top predators in their food niche, right? Not anything really hunts a red-tailed hawk. So outside of maybe people hurt them. So they're born fearing people. How long do you think? From her sitting on a telephone pole, for her coming from a tree branch to me outside, how long do you think that takes?
3 weeks.
Years?
3 weeks.
3 weeks? Takes about a month. Yeah, it takes about a month from 100% wild to coming into our home, around our dogs, around our kids, around everything, to free flight hunting. It takes about a month, depending on the bird. Now, each individual bird has a personality, just like everybody in here has a little bit different personality. It's amazing how different they are. This is actually Abby's bird, one of the birds that she trained. We kind of co-train birds together. But she caught this one, and this is her main bird. She pushes around and hunts. But comparative to my bird, this bird's really nice. My bird, not so much. She really likes to kill things. So it's this complete polar opposites of each other. My bird is sitting here and just want to go. And she's content sitting on the gloves.
How did you catch that bird?
So we have a specialized trap. So you see them sitting on the side of the telephone pole, and it's got to be on a rural road. There's not a lot of cars, obviously. It's basically a mesh cage, and there's a live mouse inside the cage. And you got to think in their natural history of them hunting mice and things, they're used to going through sticks and going through grass, so the cage really doesn't faze them at all. And then they try to just catch the mouse in the cage. And on top of the cage, we have nooses. fishing line nooses, little small ones. So they're going down and trying to catch the mouse through the cage with their feet. Well, the nooses get snagged around their toes. And then the cage is light or heavy enough where they can't take off with it. They can move it, but they can't fly away with it. And so we'll just see them sitting on a telephone pole. We'll just pull over nice and slow and flip the trap out on the ground and pull away. And they go up in the road and turn around, and they'll come off the telephone pole and try to catch that mouse. That's one method. Other methods, there's like pigeons and nets and all kinds of complicated stuff. But one of the easiest methods is that it's called a balsa tree, which balsa tree, the word is Arabic, it means noose carpet. Okay, interesting factoid. But that's literally what it is a carpet of nooses over top of a mouse. So, and you probably heard something else that she's wearing. She's wearing a bell. That's right here on her foot. That is to help me track her. For me, yeah. So when I flip her up in a tree and she's flying around completely untethered, you know, you can imagine in the winter, brown and white, she blends in pretty good, right? So a lot of times I'll even lose sight of her, but as soon as I hear, I can pinpoint her, and I don't even really got to look at her to see what she's doing. And she can fly from branch to branch and tree to tree around me. And we train them to follow us. So she learns after a while that I'm the one going to produce the game, or if I'm running my dogs with her, she'll follow the dogs. Because she's learned that they're going to pick up the game. So she's usually not too far away, she's usually just in the branches above my head. But if she does see something way far off, the cadence of how the bell rings as they fly, I can kind of hear it. I've learned that kind of a more ringing sound means she's flying after something, and then I can look to see where she's going or what she's chasing after. So. Yeah.
Well, the owl mainly hunted by hearing, and the falcon hunted by sight. So what is this bird's major hunting?
Yep, these birds hunt by sight. These are sight birds too. If you think about, if you've ever seen birds sitting on the freeway downtown Madison, they're sitting right on the roadways. There's no way they're hearing their prey. They're seeing their prey. There's so much traffic and so much car noise that eyesight is really what they're using. And in general, raptors' hearing outside of owls, like hawks and eagles and falcons, their hearings are very similar to ours. Their hearing is very similar to ours, so they can hear the same tone, the same frequencies. They can't hear supersonic pitch like dogs. They can't hear super low pitches. So what we can hear, you can hear, or they can hear. That's what we're doing. So, yeah.
So the relationship between you and the hawk and your wife and the hawk. My question would be: what happens in the event that you're no longer able to have a relationship with the raptor? How does that transfer to another person? I know about parrots living so long and things like that. So.
Yes. You can ask. She's not food. So the part of that.
I don't think that she understood what the bird said.
Yeah. Can you speak clearly, please? So.
Thank you for explaining.
Anybody else? So say a relationship breaks down between a bird and a handler, which in realistic that doesn't really happen because it's all positive reinforcement. There is no punishment, so there's never anything really bad happening between us. But sometimes the personalities don't clash. Like my bird, the one that they really so nice, her aggression over the year. So I kept her for a season. So I caught her last year, and so I flew her all last winter. I oversummered her, and now I'm flying her this winter. Her level of aggression has just increased. I don't know if it's because of hormones or she just got too used to her routine, but her level of aggression is just, borderline dangerous. But because I know how to work with her and I've had her for so long, I can kind of sidetrack that and cope that. But
Joe, if you gave the bird to someone else.
Oh, if I gave the bird to someone else?
Parents get attached to people?
Yeah, they don't really form that kind of attachment. If that's what you're looking for.
Because it's all food?
It's all food-based, yeah. So there is a level of trust here. She knows we're not going to hurt each other, and I'm not really going to hurt her. And I'm providing food to them. But if I were to give her to someone else, it would still be a food-based trust. They would kind of revert to a fear you know, like, oh my God, you're a new person. But then you get, you know, if I give her to you and you just give her some food, she'd jump right to your glove. I could probably, with most of our birds that we have flying, I could probably flip them up in a tree, and in most cases I could put a glove in your hand, a little piece of food, and they can fly to you. Their trust of humans is really subdued, so they really trust humans a lot for the most part as a falconry bird. But if it does break down where they don't trust us, nice thing about a falconry bird, just flip loose. Because they came from the wild, they will go back to the wild someday. That's what I'm going to do with my birds. I'm going to flip her loose this spring. Yeah.
You kind of answered one part of my question, that they will go back to the wild and they're not going to come up and hang out with humans again. They go back to being wild. Do you ever catch a bird, train it, and then it just says, I'm done with this, and takes off?
Yeah.
Come back?
Oh yeah. I've had it happen. Yeah, it's partially trainer error, it's partially bird personality. Depending on, you know, environmental factors like warm, like he was trying to fly in warm days, at spermling days, so there's currents of air that are warm, it's just easy for them to set their wings and just soar. I'm trying to talk. So, but yeah, it does happen. And that, I mean, and I just want to point that out that the falconry birds will go back to the wild. So we're trapping these birds, we trapped her out of the wild. You know, we might be able to, we can keep her, I can keep her as long as I want through my permits. I can keep her entire life. That's really not fair to her. 75 to 80% of all raptors, so eagles through owls, will die within their first birthday. So they won't make it to year 1 due to several factors: environment, people, starvation, you know, all kinds of factors. So us as falconers, we can do our little part, taking a first-year bird, housing them over winter, giving them hunting skills, feeding them, making sure they're healthy. When she came in, she had worms and she had feather parasites. She has none of that anymore. So she's going to go back out into the wild a lot healthier than when we got her, with more skills. And you know, that's the theory. Now, there hasn't been a study done where falconry birds, like, you track them as they leave. There hasn't been that study, so I don't know that for sure. But in my mind, it sure helps them to get them through that hardest part of their life, that year 1, get them through year 1 and release them.
And would you band her then when you release her?
No, we don't band her. We have a band on her now that signifies that she is connected to us and our permits. But when we release them, we're required to cut that off. And if I wanted to, I guess I could find a bird bander somewhere to put a band on her, and then I could find out if somebody does recover her. But if any of you guys do bird banding stuff, what's the percentage of band recovered? 10, maybe? Yeah, super low percentages of actual bird band recovered. So, other questions? Yeah.
How can you tell what sex she is?
About how big she is.
Yeah,
Yeah, so in the raptor world, females are always larger than males by about a third. So in perspective, she's about 1,200 grams. Now, no grams is scary. But she's about 1,200 grams, which is about 2.5 pounds-ish, 2-ish pounds in there. So a male would be about 800. So it's, you know, half a pound, 3/4 of a pound difference between a male and a female right there. Now females are usually preferred, you know, just because they're bigger, they pack more of a punch, you can handle a little bit bigger objects. But not saying males can just catch a rabbit in this world just like a female can. So. Yeah.
Do you ever get a bird, any type of bird, that just doesn't want to leave?
Doesn't want to leave?
When you put it back to the wild, that just hangs around and doesn't want to stay? I mean, doesn't want to go?
Sometimes I've heard of people, you know, like they flip the bird up and like follows them home. I've heard of that, but not typically. So say I'm going to go release her, I'll just put her in one of our big flight pens, and I'll just throw food to her. And so like we fly her at like 1,200 grams, she'll leave us at like 1,400 or 1,500 grams, super fat, fat and happy. Well, then that relationship, that food-based bond that we have isn't there. It's gone. And a lot of times you go into a mew that you've been feeding a bird up like that, and they won't even let you pick them up. You have to catch them and then release them that way, just because they rewild that quickly. And it would only take a month or 2.
Right.
But it's every day a constant handling. Like he said, would you quit looking at me? You have a question?
I was just going to ask if they get broody. Like, do they want to nest and lay eggs?
Yeah, if you do keep them for several years, the females do tend to get broody. And I'm wondering if that might be part of my bird's issue. She's got a little hormones going on, and make her be more defensive and more territorial over perch and stuff like that. So, but it shouldn't really happen until you're like 3 or 4. But you never know. Yeah.
When you hunt with her, does she wear an antenna?
What's that? Say that again. Sorry.
When you hunt with her, does she wear an antenna?
Yeah. So we will run telemetry. It's just a radio. She wears a radio transmitter, and I can just clip it to her leg or whatever, so that she doesn't wear it all the time. And in that case, if she does fly off, I have a receiver. It's like a beep, beep. It sends out a signal. I can okay, she's over here somewhere, and I can walk that way, and then take another point. Okay, now she's over here, and it takes a little bit of time. Yeah.
Do you ever use the owl?
No, we don't use that owl. And owls are very difficult to train. Their mind and their whole system is so much different than a hawk. Not saying it can't be done. I do know people that do it, but we're not at that level to do that right now. So I'm getting the signal that I'm out of time. So thank you so much for everything.